On the right, playing Elves, both of them at X and 1 here, trying to win their way into the top 8. Tell us a little bit about Elves. We haven't seen this yet today.
Well, that's because Chris Anderson has given them up. Normally our go-to Elves player, and actually Riley Curran is someone who knows Chris, and Chris actually helped him with Elves. They actually helped each other on their list.
He probably just gave him his deck. He's like, I don't need these anymore.
Yeah, so Riley actually has an Open Series win, as does Ryan Hovis. Riley Curran rocking the Combo Elves deck. The player who is most known for playing this deck now that Chris Anderson has abandoned our pointy-eared friends is Ross Merriam, the bearded warrior Ross Merriam from Middleton, Connecticut. Now,
better than my beard?
It's debatable. Ross is pretty proud of his beard.
Okay.
I actually like yours better. I don't want to give Ross any credit, but that's another story altogether. Now, Elves is this deck that can generate a ton of mana, has these insane draws that involve Glimpse of Nature, but can also play an honest game, which is giving some beatdowns, but it tries to play a very dishonest game as often as possible with either Natural Order, finding Crater of Behemoth and giving the beatdowns, having insane Glimpse of Nature draws, tutoring her things with Green Sun Zenith. The difficult thing for this deck is when it goes up against a boatload of removal. You know, the reason that this deck kind of fell out of flavor was because at some point people were playing Terminus in their Miracles decks, but that deck is pretty much gone now.
It's completely gone.
Yeah.
We haven't seen it at all today. I think Reed Duke was really the big champion of that deck.
Yeah, him and Joe Lissette on the West Coast, but we're in the Midwest/East Coast, so there are not going to be very many Blue-White Miracle players on this side of the country. So as a result, Elves is still a pretty good choice, at least over here, where there are little to no copies of Terminus floating around. So this deck is actually pretty well positioned. You see Curran here at 7-1 playing for top 8, so we'll see if he can slide by Esper Deathblade, a deck that does a lot of different things, but mass removal, is not its specialty.
It's not one of them, no. The only removal spells in the main deck for Ryan is 4 Swords to Plowshares, and I guess you could call Umezawa's Jite a removal spell of sorts. And Riley Curran he started off with a turn 1 Nettle Sentinel. That's a 2/2 for a green that does not untap during your untap step, but does untap every time you cast a green creature spell.
Rarely is this creature seen to be tapped for a very long time. You see Hovis does cast a Stoneforge Mystic, searching up equipment. We've got Riley Curran tapping his mana here. He's got a value in a Dryad Arbor, trying to figure out what he wants to do. What game plan does he want to use here? Because he does have an Elvish Visionary in his hand, but he's going to start by coming across for 2 points of damage here. Hovis could double block, put the Stoneforge and the Deathrite Shaman in the way, but we see him not do that, and now here's an Elvish Visionary going to draw Curran a card. He's going to activate the Quirion Ranger, untap the Dryad Arbor, and pick up the Bayou. So he basically gets his 2 mana all over again. Now he's going to cast a Green Sun Zenith for 1.
Okay, so he has to be going for the Heritage Druid here, right? That is the other combo. He's going to get Wirewood Symbiote.
So Symbiote is this interesting card here because in this situation, Symbiote can actually make it so that he can attack, he can return his Elvish Visionary, do all these goofy little tricks, but the most important one here is that if Hovis' plan is to put Umezawa's Jite into play, equip it and bash for the guy, he can actually block and then pick up the guy he's blocking with, so damage never happens.
And there you see Wirewood Symbiote, the activated ability, return an elf you control to its owner's hand, untap target creature. Play this ability only once each turn.
Correct.
So notably, it does not say play this ability anytime you could cast a sorcery.
Yes.
A little bit different here, once each turn, so you can actually use it twice, once on their turn, once on your turn.
And you see that happen a lot.
Yeah, here we go. He's going to pick up the Elvish Visionary, Riley is, and he's going to recast it at some point here to draw another card. So Wirewood Symbiote, a little bit of a card advantage engine going on here.
So, I mean, he has the, this is the thing that kind of made Elves a little bit popular and a good choice. So, the Green Sun Zenith here from Riley is that people started playing this deck as kind of this way to beat the Bug and Jund decks because the Symbiote plus Elvish Visionary engine was so powerful and it could really push through decks that are casting Thoughtseize and Hymnotoric and killing their guys by just saying, hey, I'll just keep drawing some cards. You can't keep up with my card advantage engine. And that was kind of the reason that this deck started to see some play around Grand Prix Denver at the beginning of this year. Matt Nass, Luis Scott Vargas, both championing this deck.
So Ryan Hovis is responding to the Green Sun Zenith for 1 with a Brainstorm. Possible he's going to think about countering this Zenith. Yeah, you mentioned GP Denver. I recall that GP. The crew from out west was playing the Elves deck with Crater Hoof Behemoth.
Yep. And that's been what everyone's adopted now. Some people had Progenitus, Regal Force, a lot of different large green creatures to search for in natural order, but everyone has adopted Crater of Behemoth now. You typically find 2 copies in these Elves decks. You're going to find 2 copies in Curran's deck here as well, as the way that people are actually just getting the job done and dealing the, I want to say final points of damage, but massive points of damage.
Well, when you have maybe half a dozen or more elves on the board, Crater Hoof Behemoth's overrun ability can just end it completely. There you go. Ryan Hovis finishes resolving his Brainstorm and pitches a Force of Will to a Force of Will to counter the Green Sun Zenith. So he did not want Riley Curran to get a second Zenith for 1. That most surely would have gotten the Heritage Druid, which is part of this elf combo mana engine.
Curran's going to bash in for 2. Again, Hovis search for Umezawa Shite, not Batterskull, with the Stoneforge Mystic. So you guys know at home, we know here in the booth, and Curran knows there at the table that the equipment in Hovis' hand is Umezawa Shite, and he needs to make sure that he plays around that accordingly. So you see Curran making sure the life totals are all good to go, and I'm interested to see what he's going to do in his second main phase here now that he's done attacking, how he wants to activate Curran Ranger, which is going to untap the Dryad Arbor, pick up his Bayou, replay that.
Right, so we have 2 very similar effects here, the Wirewood Symbiote and the Quirion Ranger. The Quirion Ranger returns a forest you control to its owner's hand to untap target creature. This also can only be activated once each turn. Meanwhile, the Symbiote returning an elf you control to untap a creature. And Ryan Hovis is going to read them both and try to figure out which one does what.
Yeah. And which one is worth killing with the Swords of Plowshares that's in my hand? I think that's the big question as well. You know, the thing about Elves is if you're not familiar with playing against this deck, then you're not going to be very familiar with what cards are important and which cards aren't, because they honestly all kind of look the same.
Yeah.
You know, they all seem like they're interchangeable, but they're really not. And this is the important one in Wirewood Symbiote, and so he's going to untap his Dryad Arbor. Swords is going to take care of that, and he's going to pick back up his Elvish Visionary. So there's a lot of moving parts in what these cards can do. That's where things kind of get out of control.
Yeah, and that's the correct play for multiple reasons. One, the Wirewood Symbiote could just bounce an elf and fog the Umezawa's Jite all day, keeping it from getting counters. And of course, if he tried to Swords to Plowshares the Quirion Ranger, it itself is an elf.
Yeah.
So he could have just bounced that with the Wirewood Symbiote. So exiling the Symbiote, absolutely correct here. And even though Ryan Hovis is at 10 life, we start to see him taking control of this board.
All right, so there's your Jite, which of course we already knew about. So Deathrite Shaman's able to put that in play because of the mana. So you see him Brainstorm Swords and then use Deathrite Shaman, remove a land, uses other land to put them as Jite in play. So you see some of the power here of Deathrite Shaman.
Yeah, now gonna Brainstorm before the attack, or Thoughtseize before the attack.
Okay. So here's a hand. You're gonna see a Crater of Behemoth. You're gonna see a copy of Nettle Sentinel, Elvish Visionary, Quirion Ranger, and a Deathrite Shaman.
So Deathrite Shaman, your #1 boogeyman in Legacy, also in this deck because it's an elf.
It's everywhere.
Of all the things,
yeah.
It's got an extra point of power, extra point of toughness, extra creature type. Sure, it's an elf. Why not?
It's green and black, so it can go in basically every deck. We need to. Can we print just like a 1-mana 3/3 Goblin Lackey? Is that okay? Just to kind of even things out for me.
Sure, we'll get right on that.
Okay, good. That's gonna be my invitational card.
Well, they don't have the Wizards of the Coast Invitational anymore. You can't design a card.
I feel like they might bring it back.
I would love to see them bring it back. Until then, you can win a Star City Games Invitational and get a token. We talked about that yesterday. Ryan Hovis attacking, equipping the Umezawa's Jite to the Stoneforge Mystic and attacking. It looks like the
Quirion Ranger is the one that made it difficult because he blocks the Dryad Arbor and then he picks it up with the Quirion Ranger. So no tokens yet. Now he's going to come across for 2 and put Hovis down to 6. So, you know, swordsing that Wirewood Symbiote is certainly important, but Quirion Ranger makes things a little tricky as well. And the goal here for Curran is don't ever let there get counters on that Umezawa Shite, because if it ever gets counters, it's almost impossible to win.
It's going to be a slaughter.
Yep. You can't let it happen. play fetch land and pass the turn back.
Plays a fetch land. Does he have another Dryad Arbor? How many Dryad Arbors
so
does he have?
that's the fun thing is, does he have another Dryad Arbor? Is he trying to induce a mistake here from Hovis? He does have 2 copies of Dryad Arbor in his deck. So if you're Hovis, you have to be thinking that Curran does have another Dryad Arbor in his deck, that he's not just, you know, making a large error. You have to think right now that he's probably trying to trick and or trap you.
Yeah, and Ryan puts his hand on his head and looks at the board, looks at that Misty Rainforest. He's like, why didn't you play that Dryad Arbor? You fogged me last turn, you could fog me this turn. So Ryan Hovis, perhaps seeing the writing on the wall, anticipating a second Dryad Arbor off that Misty Rainforest, goes for a Stoneforge Mystic, gonna get himself a Batterskull, realizes he's gonna need to find some other avenue of attack here.
Yeah, because Stoneforge Mystic with Umezawa's Jite is not going to get it done right now. Oddly enough, that's not going to get it done.
So that was a very important sequence there. Riley Curran playing the Misty Rainforest instead of the Dryad Arbor again, trying to maybe induce Ryan into making a mistake, make it look like he made a mistake possibly. Ryan reading that play, not attacking with the Stoneforge Mystic, playing another one to search that Batterskull, leaving his first one untapped so that he can activate it and get that Batterskull down.
Yep. So you see him search out another copy of Dryad Arbor, takes a look at Hovis.
Yeah,
flares his eyebrows a little bit, says, yep, I tried to trick you a little bit, my friend. Didn't work out, but you're also not attacking with your creature that has Umezawa's Jite on it, so it feels like it's a win-win all around if you're Curran.
Sure, that's gonna give Riley the ability to get both Dryad Arbors down, or maybe a different land right here. Because that was also important. In order to fog, he had to sacrifice his land drop every turn, returning the Dryad Arbor. Okay, so Ryan Hovis at 6 life, but he is going to have 2 pieces of equipment, both with the possibility of gaining him some life.
So here's another Quirion Ranger.
Oh, wow.
And of course, Curran can't attack because he knows, of course, that Hovis does have that Batterskull in hand. Deathrite Shaman plus a Tropical Island are going to be able to put that into play. And the thing that Curran is really looking for right now, Riki, is he's looking for a Gaia's Cradle, so he can generate a boatload of mana, cast that Crater of Behemoth, and get in for, you know, basically infinite damage. And of course, the Elves deck now is playing 4 copies of this card, and this is pre-new Legend rule. They're playing 4 copies of this card. That's how good it is.
And it's going to be even better in a few weeks, where you can play a Gaia's Cradle, tap it for a lot of mana, play a second Gaia's Cradle, make the first one go away instead of both of them, and then tap the new one for a whole bunch more mana.
Alright, so let's see what's going to happen here, because did he put the Batterskull in play? Why does it look like
he did not.
He did not put the Batterskull in play. Now that is curious.
Are they out of lands for the Deathrite Shaman? It doesn't look like it. It looks like...
Oh, so what happened here is he went to go activate his Deathrite Shaman, and Curran activated his own Deathrite Shaman. This is something that you actually brought up.
We talked about this earlier, yeah.
Where it's not a mana ability, it's an activated ability. That's the big difference between the two. So now Hovis doesn't get his Batterskull into play. Now he has to brainstorm and kind of look for answers or get a little bit deeper into his deck, because now he doesn't have a 4/4 Vigilance Batterskull out there, because Curran's Deathrite Shaman messed up Hovis's.
Right, and Ryan Hovis tapping his Tundra there to cast the Brainstorm, so if he doesn't want to get his Deathrite Shaman activation messed with again, he's going to have to use it now for mana. Now he's going to use Inquisition of Kozilek first, takes a look, sees the Crater Hoof Behemoth, boom, boom, boom.
And even though Hovis is even though Curran is a ways away from that, if he draws one Gaia's Cradle, he is immediately there.
Yes.
That's all it takes.
That Gaia's Cradle would represent 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 green mana right now. Those Dryad Arbors doing double duty as creatures and lands.
Alright, now comes Batterskull, which you were wondering if he was going to do it on his main phase, because he did use the Tundra. Maybe that was a mistap, maybe it wasn't, but he immediately puts in the Batterskull.
At least he recognized the situation he was in.
Yep.
and made sure to get the Batter Skull down because he does want to get some kind of life gain online here.
So Curran is going to untap his Deathrite Shaman. He's going to get that active. Untapping it via Quarian Ranger, of course. Going to remove something and put Hovis down to 4.
So here we go. Quarian Ranger, the ability to drain. And
Drain
the ability to
again.
untap it.
Yep. Pick this up, untap this, replay this, drain you for the final 2.
That's going to do it.
Yep, that's it. So Riley Curran is going to win game number 1, probably off the back of a slight error there by Ryan Hovis not having his Batter Skull in play and a couple other things. But again, if you're not used to playing against elves, Riki, you don't know all the tricks that those elves can provide. You saw him take the time to pick up that Wirewood Symbiote and the Quarian Ranger in the opening turns of the game and say, what's the difference between these two? Which one of these do I want to Swords to Plowshares? Feels like he didn't Swords the right one, or maybe there wasn't a right one.
Yeah, there are so many things going on with this Elves deck. You said so many moving parts. All of these activated abilities, triggered abilities. This land is also a creature. You know, it's also a forest. You can pick it up with the Quarian Ranger. You can pick up your elves with the Wirewood Symbiote. It's kind of a merry-go-round of abilities. And Ryan Hovis, if you don't practice against this deck, there's a lot going on, and it's very easy to miss 1 or 2 subtle interactions.
You can fall into its traps very, very easily. You miss one thing, it turns into 2 things, it turns into 3, it turns into your dead, where, think about that game. Nettle Sentinel got in for some damage. Some other elves kind of got in for a little bit of incremental damage, but there was no big turn there from Riley. There was no Glimpse of Nature turn. There was no Natural Order, Crater of Behemoth that showed up. That was like the most honest game of Magic I've ever seen elves play, and it just won anyway.
Yeah, and Riley Curran, very experienced with this deck.
Oh, yeah.
I kept thinking, you know, when he cast Green Sun Zenith, okay, you're going to get Heritage Druid and start comboing off with that Mana Engine Heritage Druid plus Nettle Sentinel. No, he chose to go for the Wirewood Symbiote, and it turned out to be the correct play. He had the Elvish Visionary in his hand, he recast it a few times, drew a few extra cards, and he gained that kind of incremental advantage, and all of a sudden, Ryan Hovis was dead.
Well, Ryan Hovis, he's going to go to his side. We're going to take a look at what he can do to sure things up here, because again, you have a matchup here where he had an Umezawa's Jite, had it in play, equipped to a creature, and lost anyway. So what can he do to make sure that doesn't happen again?
Well, he's got another one of these mishmash sideboards. He's only got 2 Surgical Extractions and 2 Lingering Souls, and then everything else is a singleton. Path to Exile, Spell Pierce, Thought Seize, Disenchant, Counterspell, Oblivion Ring, Vandalion Click, Vindicate, Notion Thief, Singleton Notion Thief, Supreme Verdict, could be relevant here, or the last card, Perish.
And that one's going to be really relevant.
Absolutely coming in. Destroy all of the green creatures.
And because why not? They can't be regenerated either.
Yeah, sure.
So don't even think about that either if you're Riley Curran. Yeah, I think he's got some nice cards supported here. He's got Path to Exile, which I like a lot. I think I'm okay with Thoughtseize coming in as well. Have an idea of what you need to worry about. Oblivion Ring is not great. It's 3 mana answer where, you know, it's going to take out one of those elves and break up the engine, but 3 mana is a lot, whereas you can play a 3 mana spell and Perish and have a lot better effect. Vindicate, kind of like Oblivion Ring there in that it doesn't really do what you want it to do, just because it's expensive, so it's not efficient. But Supreme Verdict also going to come in because you want mass removal effects against this deck in combo elves.
Yeah, so Riley Curran, he won game 1, he's up a game, but he's still not out of it yet. What does he need to do? How is he going to counter Ryan Hovis' game plan?
He has something that we don't see very often in sideboards nowadays. A 4 of.
Whoa!
Yeah, I know, it's crazy. 4 Cabal Therapies, which he may or may not board in. Typically you find combo elves boarding in Cabal Therapy against opposing combo decks because they're a combo deck that is slower than your normal combo deck, like a Show and Tell deck, like a Storm deck. So that's only what that's there for. 2 copies of Thoughtseize as well, a little additional discard to beat those other combo decks. His other 2 copies of Abrupt Decay, which aren't the worst because they do take care of Stoneforge Mystic, Deathrite Shaman, and Dark Confidant. So I like that as an option here. I'm not sure if he's going to board it or not, but I like it at least as an option. Then his singletons, 1 Mindbreak Trap, 1 Thalia Guardian of Thraben, a Gaddock Teague, a Kosali Pride Mage, an additional Natural Order, which will put him up to 4, a Scavenging Ooze, and a Natural Order target in Progenitus, which if he ever does put Progenitus into play, outside of that Perish, that Supreme Verdict, Ryan Hovis cannot get it off the board.
So that's another option The Craterhoof Behemoth, you natural order for that, or you hard cast that when you have a bunch of elves out on the field. Progenitus is something you can get, when you are kind of light on creatures. Maybe expecting Ryan Hovis to sideboard into more of a package with removal spells. Maybe you want that Progenitus, because if you can just stick the one creature and cast a natural order, that could be game.
Yeah. Progenitus is a fun one because, it's great with natural order, and we saw a lot of people using that in sideboards of various different green decks. You saw many, many, many years ago the no-bant deck, which stood for natural order bant, that had the Progenitus in it. You saw Lurin decks playing that in the sideboard as a transformational sideboard, and any deck that can play green cards would do that. You see a Thoughtseize here from Curran targeting Hovis. We don't see it happen as much anymore, so as a result, people aren't really prepared for it as much as they used to be. Interested to see what Curran's going to take here with this Thoughtseize. You see a Hand of Swords, the Plowshares, 2 copies of Flutterstrand, a Batterskull, and an Inquisition of Kozilek.
Yeah, both the Inquisition and the Swords to Plowshares represents the ability to deal with one of Riley's cards. Which one is he more worried about?
And I can't imagine he's scared of a Batterskull right now, that's for sure.
Not without a Stoneforge Mystic out to cheat it into play.
So when the position's going to go bye-bye, Curran does not want Hovis to have any idea what's going on in his hand over there. And I actually kind of like that take. Taking a discard spell, making sure that his opponent doesn't have the slightest idea what's going on, but his draw step for Hovis changes things quite a bit.
Gonna pass the turn here. Yeah, so as you said, taking the Inquisition of Kozilek, if Ryan is able to cast that, he gets to see Riley's hand and sees what's up. If he takes that away, leaves the Swords to Plowshares, he can play out his creatures one at a time, and Ryan Hovis is not quite sure what the best one is to Swords to Plowshares, so information is critical there. That's why you take the discard spell at this point in the game, and he's going to get to look anyway.
Vendilion Click is the draw step, and I'm interested to see if he did that in his draw step or if he did it on his upkeep. So it looks like he did it on his upkeep instead of in the draw step, which is typically when you see a Vendilion Click get cast.
And we see an Elvish Visionary, a Quirion Ranger, it looks like 2 Gaia's Cradles, a Wooded Foothills, and a Verdant Catacombs. And they're saying, I wanted to do it during your draw step, and a 3rd Gaia's Cradle. And right now, currently, those are just Wasteland themselves. Not quite there yet, M14 rules. Those are pretty much dead draws for Riley, additional Cradles.
I'm a little bit surprised that he took the Quirion Ranger there, because I feel like Elvish Visionary is the scariest card in Curran's hand right now. So that is a touch surprising to me that that's what he took.
Well, he remembers what happened last game. He remembers that Quirion Ranger was able to rebuy the Dryad Arbors. Riley has 2 fetch lands, so he can get those Dryad Arbors, and he can get some kind of engine going with those involved.
And Abrupt Decay was the card that was drawn off the Vendilion Click's triggered ability. So, once we get the life total square here, Curran going to go down to 17, 2 from the Thoughtseize, 1 from the Verdant Catacombs. We'll see what land he's going to search out here. It's going to be another non-basic in the form of Bayou, and we're going to probably see an Elvish Visionary join the party, because he does not have much of a reason to cast Abrupt Decay just yet.
No, not yet. He can afford to take a few hits from the Vendilion Click, or see if Ryan has a Umezawa's Jite as a follow-up. Meanwhile, establish a creature presence on the board so his Gaia's Cradle can make some mana next turn. We see he drew a Nettle Sentinel off of the Elvish Visionary.
See, Visionary is the scariest card to me because they have so many ways to abuse Elvish Visionary. That's why I want to make that go away with the Vendilion Click. I mean, first of all, I don't want my opponent just to get to see another card, but I just kind of want to get that out of there because, if he draws a wire with Symbiote, and we know he has multiple Gaia's Cradles in his hand, then he can kind of get out of control, or you can just draw a Green Sun Zenith too. So, to me, if I'm in Hovis' spot that last turn, I want to take the Visionary because that's the card that I think is more scary instead of a Quirion Ranger.
You keep using that word, and it keeps weirding me out that you're calling Elvish Visionary scary. This is a 1/1 creature. It draws a card. It cantrips.
It's not super scary.
It's not scary.
That thing's mean.
I mean, if you meet an Elvish Visionary in a dark alley, are you going to be like, oh my goodness?
If it draws 5 cards, I will.
And there you go. The Abrupt Decay says, I've had enough. Targets the Vendilion Click.
Now Hovis is going to sacrifice his land. It looks like he's going to use the Deathrite Enchantment plus the 4 lands to put into play the Batterskull. But that will mean, Riki, that the shields are down.
And look at that. Look who is standing behind Ryan Hovis.
Oh, somebody's interested now, huh?
Chris Anderson, Betrayer of the Woods.
Somebody saying Elves deck was playing for top 8? I guess I'll take a look. See what's going on here. Traitor. Such a traitor. You can't get back on board now, Chris.
I can't hold it against him. He has a trophy.
But at what cost, Riki? At what cost?
So Ryan Hovis hard cast that Batterskull. We said it was not a threat earlier in the game, but we finally reached that point where it's come out. And it, to me, it looks like a Japanese foil Batterskull. That's some bling right there. And this token, I don't even know what this token is.
Yeah, I don't know what that is.
Is this a...
It's a crazy card. It's foily. It's shiny. It's got 7,500 power.
Is this a Kaijudo card?
I think that is a
or
Kaijudo
a Yu-Gi-Oh card.
Yeah.
Whatever the case, it's very shiny.
Green Sun Zenith, the draw here for Riley. And now he's going to get to be able to do some things because, again, you mentioned he has the Nettle Sentinel in his hand. He has a Dry Arbor in play. That counts as a creature. So I think we're going to see a pretty big turn here, even though he doesn't have Glimpse.
Here we go. 3 mana off the cradle, so 4 mana total. He's going to Green Suns for X equals 3.
This smells like Viridian Shaman to me.
Oh, and Ryan, yeah, he must have said it because Ryan immediately puts the Batterskull or just expects it. There you go. The Germ token is also going to go away. It is a 0/0.
It was a 7,500.
Oh.
7,500.
Over 9,000.
Yeah, yes.
Ah.
So Curran's going to present his deck. Pretty good turn there for him. He's actually able to get some beatdowns in too with the Visionary and the Dryad Arbor. That's scary Elvish Visionary coming across. And now his Gaia's Cradle is actually going to tap for 1, 2, 3, 4 mana.
Maybe
4
more.
creatures in play, maybe more depending on what he draws. So we're looking at 4, 5, 6, 7 mana on his next turn. And we know he has a Crater of Behemoth in his hand, so potentially this could get a little ugly. But that's going to clean some things up. So Supreme Verdict there from Hovis. Timely.
Ooh, so all those creatures die. Dryad Arbor being one of them, so Riley loses a land in the deal as well. And Gaia's Cradle is blanked now with no creatures in play, so it's like he also lost 2 lands in the deal.
Oh, but there's the scary one. Because Elvish Visionary draws Curran a card.
I'm still not scared.
Gives him a mana for that Nettle Sentinel, and now he's right back in this thing. Here's a Deathrite Shaman, and we know Hovis' last card is just Swords Plowshare. So, you'll be scared.
I am frightened to death of the Crater Hoof Behemoth coming down. That thing, green, 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 5. It's a 5/5 beast with haste. With a triggered ability that says when Crater Hoof Behemoth enters the battlefield, creatures you control get trampled, and +X, where X is the number of creatures you control. That's scary.
Are you scared yet? Because Wirewood Symbiote is here. And now the interaction with that and the scary Elvish Visionary. Are you scared yet?
No.
Okay.
I'm sorry.
All right.
Joe Rogan, fear is not a factor for me.
Oh, wow. Okay. Well, give me a couple more turns.
Okay. Well, if I give you a couple more turns, it's going to be Crater Hoof Behemoth. It's going to be doing the damage.
So Swords of Plowshares takes down that scary Elvish Visionary. Somebody's scared of it out there.
It's not fear, it's respect.
Okay. All right.
And it's as much respect for the Wirewood Symbiote here as it is for the Visionary.
What is this? This is a Stoneforge Mystic on the top. That, my friend, is a good draw step. That's going to search up an Umezawa Shite.
Oh, now though, now you start to wonder if Ryan was a little hasty in using the Swords to Plowshares on the Elvish Visionary, because the Wirewood Symbiote is still present. There is still another elf in Nettle Sentinel that can be bounced. That Umezawa's Jite is currently in the process of potentially being blanked by the symbiote bouncing elves.
You see that Heritage Druid is the draw here for Riley. Umezawa's Jite is in play, trying to take a stab at that Wirewood Symbiote. So, In for 2 is step number 1 here for Curran. Now there's your Heritage Druid. Gonna untap his Nettle Sentinel. And again, his hand right now is 2 copies of Gaia's Cradle and a Crater of Behemoth, and he simply passes back the turn. Deathrite Shaman's gonna remove something here. It's gonna deal Riley 2 points of damage. Hovis is going to select his Inquisition of Kozilek.
Drain. Drain. Now, how much mana can Riley make? He's got Gaia's Cradle can make 3, 4, 5. Not quite at Crater Hoof Behemoth yet. And now here comes Stoneforge Mystic.
See a block here. Gonna pick up the Heritage Druid. Hovis knows that this is going to happen, realizing the annoyance of this, but would like Heritage Druid off the board. And now a Thoughtseize. So a bit of a trap there. And the hand has been revealed. 2 Gaia's Cradles, a Heritage Druid, and a Crater of Behemoth. You see him doing the math.
He's adding up the mana to see if that Crater Hoof Behemoth is going to come out anytime soon. Not quite yet. So he's going to get rid of the Heritage Druid, which could also make a lot of mana.
Hovis pushes himself down to 9. Now, Wirewood Symbiote number 2 is the draw step for Curran. Across for 2 to start.
This Nettle Sentinel chipping away 2 points at a time and then untapping when Riley Curran casts a green spell.
So let's see if Riley's ever to draw a removal spell here, like a Snapcaster Mage, Swords of Plowshares, Path to Exile, anything for the Nettle Sentinel to get the Umezawa Jite active. He's not been able to get Jite active the entire time we've been watching. He keeps attacking. Block, pick it up. He can never get it active. And
but
he just has a Polluted Delta in his hand.
But it's notable here that now that is at least going to force Riley to put the brakes on the Nettle Sentinel beats.
That's true.
And here we go. That would also put the brakes on the beats, moving the Jite over to Deathrite Shaman, which is on defensive duty, already blanking those 1/1 Wirewood Symbiotes.
Thoughtseize the draw step for the turn here for Riley. I think Riley's got to have a pretty good idea that card in hand is probably not very good there for Hovis. And he just does lead out with the Nettle Sentinel. He could have checked to make sure the path was clear with Thoughtseize, but I think he had a pretty good idea that Hovis didn't have very much in his hand.
Deathrite Shaman continuing to do work. Exiling another spell, draining Riley for 2.
Swords to Plowshares is the draw, and it looks like Riki, if he uses this Swords to Plowshares correctly, he's going to finally be able to get through. Yes, the Swords to Plowshares is going to be countered upon resolution on the Nettle Sentinel, but it's actually going to finally get rid of this stupid thing and let Umezawa Jite get active as long as he uses it correctly. Now this
Well, no, he tapped out of his white mana, so he would be forced to use his Deathrite Shaman. That seems like a critical error there.
Yeah.
Looks at his hand. Whoops.
Because those 2 Wirewood Symbiotes just could be dead right now. That's the thing.
Yeah, so what you're saying is if he had Swords to Plowshare, the Nettle Sentinel, force Riley to pick it up pre-combat, then attack with the Stoneforge Mystic, get 2 counters on the Umezawa Jite, slaughter those 1/1s. Instead, Riley buys another turn, he draws a Heritage Druid, he keeps himself alive, he has 2 Wirewood Symbiotes, now he has 2 Elves active. Ryan Hovis missed his window right there.
Yeah, he really did. He really, really did. And that window was critical, because now again Umezawa Jite is not going to get active. Hovis is going to draw a card here. He draws another land. He plays his Plains, Polluted Delta, Swords to Plowshares, the cards in his hand, and he missed out on that opportunity to actually turn on his Jite. And so now he's back in the situation that he's been in for the previous 3 turns.
He is in a worse situation here, I feel like, because Riley now, with another creature, with that Heritage Druid, he is inching his way closer to being able to cast that Crater Hoof Behemoth. Ryan, unable to get his life gain online, is still at 7 life. Crater Hoof, whatever happens here, has got to be lethal.
Yeah, and now you see where, you know, now there's some sloppy tapping of mana coming into play on Hovis's part, where he's using non-basics instead of basics. You know, what's the benefit of keeping up an island and a plains versus keeping up double tundra? I think I'd much rather have double tundra up right now, because you're not playing against Magna's Wasteland.
Thoughtseize from Riley. I'm a little curious about that Thoughtseize, because if that resolves, Riley goes down to 4, and then he's dead to the Deathrite Shaman activation on this turn and then next turn. But instead, Ryan Hovis responds by casting Swords to Plowshares on the Nettle Sentinel, and Riley lets that resolve?
Yeah, now he's just going to concede the game. So, Ryan Hovis is going to tie this up 1-1, and we're going to see a third and final match between Hovis and Curran, Deathblade versus Elves. A little bit of back and forth. I think a little bit of sloppy play. I think players might be nervous in the feature match area right now, maybe making a couple missteps that they normally wouldn't make or haven't made over the course of the day.
Can we go over the last turn right there when Riley Curran cast that Thoughtseize? Yep. I thought what he would just do is play another land, recast the Heritage Druid, and try to continue to build up his mana. He was not... I mean, if the life totals were correct, he was at 6 life right there. So he still had another draw step after that from the Deathrite Shaman being able to kill him. So I feel like that extra draw step would have possibly given him the window to be able to hard cast the Craterhoof Behemoth, right?
Yeah, I'm right there with you. Again, I don't know what his outs look like because of the configuration of his deck post sideboard. We're not entirely sure of, but that did seem like a hasty concession, assuming that our life totals were correct. So, maybe Curran saw something that we didn't, but I question some of the plays that have taken place in this game so far. Again, both players could be pretty nervous. They are both playing for top 8 here. It's been a long weekend and a long day here as well. We've been playing since 10 a.m. East Coast time. We're looking at about 8 p.m. now. So these guys have been grinding it out through what is the 9th round of the tournament. Fatigue is starting to potentially set in here, and we'll see how they end up playing game 3, and if any mistakes are potentially made, or at least questionable lines of play are made here in this one.
Yeah, I'm trying to think back and recall what lands Riley Curran had in play at the end there. He had a Gaia's Cradle, and then, what, 2 more lands? 2 Bayous?
2 Bayous.
So he had the 2 Wirewood Symbiotes and the Nettle Sentinel in play because he had returned the Heritage Druid. So Cradle taps for 3, 4, 5. Yeah, he's
a little short.
A little short there still. But who knows, if he has a live draw step, maybe draws another elf, and he can cast 2 elves in 1 turn and activate the Heritage Druid to generate some more mana.
And start going crazy.
And by going crazy, we mean just cast the Craterhoof Behemoth.
Yeah, that's going crazy. That's crazy in my book. When your opponent's at under 10, you cast a Craterhoof Behemoth, trigger that. You give your guys in between +4, +4, and +6, +6. That's good enough to get the game done. Either way, we're going to move on to a third and final game. If you guys are just joining us, Cedric Phillips, Riki Ayashi here in the booth at the Star City Games Open Series. We've made our way to Columbus, Ohio. We are at the Origins Game Fair. We will be probably the last ones out of the building this evening, but if you guys do want to stay and hang out with us and be the last ones with us as well, you can join us on Twitter at SCG Live, #SCGCOL. For your tweets, Riki's got his computer, I've got my iPad. We'll be interacting with you guys all evening long as we find out who is going to be our Legacy Champion. We've already crowned a Standard Champion this weekend. John Wallace, playing Jund mid-range, was our champion earlier this morning. And we're looking to crown a Legacy Champion here in Columbus, Ohio's beautiful capital, best state in the world, only because I'm from here. And we'll see who's going to win.
And speaking of Twitter, John Madonia at J Madin the Buff, I believe that's what's going on here. J Mad in the Buff. Okay, I think that's how you read this. Says, couldn't the Elves player have won already? That's what I was trying to figure out. How much mana did he have? Could he have somehow generated enough for Craterhoof Behemoth to get through those last few points of damage? I don't know. I may want to go back and watch this replay myself, because when we're doing the play-by-play, it's hard to get into that strategic mode of how do you win this game? We're just trying to keep up with the action that's going on. So I might want to go back and see, was there any point where Riley could have landed a Craterhoof Behemoth? I don't think so, but we'll have to see.
All right, well, either way, he's going to start game 3 off with the Misty Rainforest. Probably going to search for a Bayou here, as he's been doing for most of this match. and gets out a Deathrite Shaman. So, a very good start here for Riley. And a Flooded Strand and a Deathrite Shaman for Hovis as well. So both players do have this mana accelerant, and they're going to have the necessary mana probably to activate both sides of it here in a little bit. Already Curran does, and we'll see if Hovis does moving forward.
But here we go. Riley does have the first Deathrite Shaman on the board, so he's going to untap with it first and be able to generate some mana off it and probably spit out a whole bunch of elves here on turn 2. And we could even see a highly explosive, if he has a Cradle here, we could see a very explosive draw. We have not really seen that from the Elves deck yet. So, first, a Thoughtseize. Let's take a look.
Clear the way. Dark Confidant, Vendilion Click, Stoneforge Mystic, Swords of Plowshare, so go along with a Flooded Strand and a Creeping Tar Pit. Decisions for Curran.
And I would just like to point out a nod to the classic Dark Confidant.
Swords to Plowshare is going to be taken care of, by that Thoughtseize. Going to leave Hovis with Dark Confidant, Stoneforge Mystic, and a Vendilion Click among those 2 other lands. So, Curran very clearly cares about removal spells being in the way, and maybe that's part of the reason that he brought in Thoughtseize, is because he cares about Swords to Plowshares / Path to Exile. Also knows that there is Supreme Verdict now after that previous game.
Yeah, that did clear the board once in game number 2. I also want to go back on Twitter to Chris at Dr. Traits earlier said, I prefer Zorg as a nickname for the new Bob. His hair is quite similar to the villain from Fifth Element. I don't know if you remember that movie.
I do.
Gary Oldman plays the villain there, and he had the kind of half-shaved head with the hair flopped over from the other side. Fifth Element, if you recall, love is the fifth element.
I do recall. But one thing that's kind of interesting here is it looks like Curran did not play a second land. As he was on the play, he led with Deathrite Shaman and then cast Thoughtseize. Now Hovis is going to be able to search out a Umezawa Shite with Stoneforge Mystic and pass the turn back. But the awkward thing here is I actually think that Curran had a second land in his hand and just didn't play it, because you see a Misty Rainforest and a Wooded Foothills in his hand. So did he just make a rather large blunder?
Did he just did he say go after the Thoughtseize? Because he also had the Deathrite Shaman could generate mana right there. Or is he looking to build up to some big turn here? We see that the Elves player has finally drawn Glimpse of Nature. Whenever you cast a green spell, draw a card, right? That thing, that's why this is a combo deck, because you can just go through and chain your Elves.
You can see in Curran's hand that he does have an additional land. He does have a Wooded Foothills, and it looks like he has an Abrupt Decay over there and a Nettle Sentinel. So it looks like he's trying to set up a Glimpse turn, but he just needs to make sure that he does not, for lack of a better term, go on tilt from that error.
Searches up the Dryad Arbor. So relevant because that could be another creature for Gaia's Cradle. And I apologize, Glimpse of Nature, whenever you cast a creature spell, not just a green one, all of his creature spells should be green here, but it is the text on the card.
So now we're going to see a Glimpse of
Nature. There you go.
Gaia's Cradle, the draw step here for Curran.
That's a huge draw step.
Huge.
Here.
Absolutely
Because the
huge.
fact that he is casting Glimpse of Nature means he is going to play a whole bunch of elf creature spells.
He's certainly planning on it, so let's see what he can do. Plays the Cradle.
Well, don't think after you play the land. You gotta think beforehand.
Yeah.
What are you gonna do? Plan out your plays. I mean, most likely gonna play the Cradle anyway. It generates so much mana here.
Now he's gonna activate his Deathrite Shaman,
Oh,
try to remove a land.
But Ryan is going to counter by also activating his Deathrite Shaman. So we have 2 Glimpse of Natures resolved. So those triggered abilities will wait for any creature spell. Ryan counters the Deathrite activation with his own. This play super relevant in Legacy, not a mana ability.
And now a Vendilion Click.
Wow.
So now here's a hand of Nettle Sentinel.
And he's going to take that Nettle Sentinel, of course.
So now 2 glimpses have happened. He's got to draw a card, and he needs to draw a 1-drop, or he gets, and he doesn't draw a creature, so he oh my goodness. Oh my goodness. So now Glimpse of Natures, both were cast and used for absolutely nothing.
Yeah, the sequencing on that, he needed to activate that Deathrite Shaman first to try to get that mana. Putting that ability on the stack gave Ryan Hovis a window after the second glimpse resolved to use that Vendilion Click, and I'm kind of in shock here at that sequence of plays. We're pretty sure that Riley missed his second land drop, right? Cast a Thoughtseize and then just forgot to play a land, it looks like. And now he fumbles the sequencing on his big combo turn, casts 2 Glimpse of Natures, activates Deathrite Shaman, but then Ryan counters with his own Deathrite Shaman activation, and then casts Vendilion Click using that mana in response, taking away Riley's Nettle Sentinel, the only creature he had in his hand, basically fizzling the 2 Glimpse of Natures. Umezawa's GT goes active, kills the Deathrite Shaman.
And that's really, I mean, now that GT is finally active, and yes, Abrupt Decay is going to take care of it, but the damage is already done here. You can't come back from these type of things. Yeah.
Well, I think he can. I mean, he's at 8 life. He's Dark Confidence. So now he's definitely facing lethal. Now he needs to do something drastic.
He's staring down a Deathrite Shaman activation, which is going to be 2 more. And then he's got attackers, does Hovis in the form of Vendilion Click, Dark Confidant, Stoneforge Mystic, Deathrite Shaman if that's feeling frisky, and assuming that a land comes...
Could activate the Creeping Tar Pit.
Could activate the Tar Pit as well, so I mean, we're looking at a lethal attack here, and I don't know what Curran can do to get back out of this. You know, the tough thing here is I feel he had the tools to win this game, and he just didn't use them correctly.
Yeah, he only had the 1 Nettle Sentinel in his hand on that turn. He was hoping to draw 2 cards off of it, off of the 2 Glimpse of Nature triggers, and then chain it into a couple of more elves that turn.
And the thing that I was going to say with the second Glimpse of Nature when he cast it, I felt that one was greedy, and the reason I felt that way is because you can actually just do a mini Glimpse, you know, Nettle Sentinel, just draw a couple cards and set up for a big Glimpse because you've got a Cradle in play, right? So the first Cradle is going to tap for 2 or 3 mana, and then the second Cradle, assuming that the first Glimpse goes right, the second activation of the Cradle is going to tap for 7 and 9 mana, and then you just get to go absolutely bonkers, and your opponent can never catch back up with you. But we didn't see Curran do that. He went for the double Glimpse, got completely ruined by a Vendilion Click, timely there by Hovis, and now we see a completely different game now. And you see a concession, and Ryan Hovis at 7-1, make it 8-1, as he is going to be moving on to the top 8. Riley Curran, a good tournament, a good run. He'll be making the top 16 most likely, but he will not be playing in the elimination rounds tonight. Elves is gone. At least 2 copies of Deathblade are in. So congratulations to Ryan Hovis.